I had never believed in moments that could break a life, until that Tuesday. It had been raining since early morning. I thought I just needed to buy some antihistamines, go home, drink a cup of ginger tea, and wrap myself in a blanket all afternoon. Everything should have been simple. But life doesn't like me to live simply. The small pharmacy on the corner of Montford Street still had its warm lights on. I pulled my coat collar up, maneuvered through the rain and the chimes on the door, and stepped into the familiar space. The smell of antiseptic, the sound of the cash register clicking, and the voice of the radio announcer introducing an old song created a calm rhythm. I handed the prescription to the clerk, and he said it would take about 15 minutes. Just enough time for me to wander around and pick up a few unnecessary items. I was at the cookie aisle when a woman walked up beside me, pushing a shopping cart filled with gardening gloves, potting soil, and fertilizer spray bottles. Nothing unusual, except that she stood still, staring at me. I felt her gaze before I even looked up. At first, I thought I had dropped something. I checked my pockets. Everything was still intact. Then my eyes met hers. The woman was in her 60s, her graying hair neatly tied at the back of her head, her pale skin, and her eyes wide open to an unnatural extent. She didn't say anything for the first few seconds, just stood there, as if I had just dropped some memory of hers on the floor. "I'm sorry, dear." Her voice trembled. "What's your name?" I furrowed my brow. "Isabel," I answered. "Isabel Bennett." Isabel Grace Bennett, the name attached to every diploma, bill, and memory I ever had. "Isabel," she repeated. Then her gaze blurred. I saw tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. I took half a step back, surprised. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. "Do I remind you of someone?" She nodded slowly, then opened her mouth, but her voice now cracked. "You look exactly like my daughter." I didn't know how to respond. "Really?" "Oh, I get told that a lot. I guess I have one of those familiar faces." "No," she shook her head. "It's not just a resemblance. It's you. It's your eyes, the way you tilt your head. It's the small scar on your left cheek." I instinctively reached up to touch my cheek. Where the faint scar was, something I had never paid attention to. My mom had told me I fell down the stairs when I was a child. It was one of those repeated memories. The kind of memory you don't actually remember, but know by heart, because you've heard it so many times. The woman continued, her voice almost holding its breath. She had a birthmark, a round one, on the back of her neck. My heart tightened, not because she was right, but because she was too right. I had never told anyone about that birthmark. It wasn't in a noticeable place. I discovered it when I was 15, tying my hair and looking in the mirror behind me. A round birthmark, like a faint coin. I always thought it was my little, unique feature. "I'm sorry." I took another step back, my heart racing. "I think you're mistaking me for someone." "Rachel," she whispered. "Rachel Marie Anderson, my daughter, missing in 1998, 3 years old." A chill ran down my spine. The warm, yellow-lit room suddenly became glaring. The air thickened, choking in my throat. I heard my heart pounding, each beat like a drum. Rachel Marie Anderson. That name wasn't unfamiliar, not entirely. My middle name is Grace, but my mother once joked that I almost named you Marie because Marie sounds so soft. I never asked more. Never thought there might be something hidden behind it. I stared at the woman. The emotion in her eyes was a strange mix of pain, hope, and something almost like waiting. As if she had rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times, but never truly believed it would happen. I couldn't bear another second. "I have to go," I stammered, stepping back, dropping the box of medicine I was holding. I didn't bend down to pick it up. I turned around, striding as if running out of the pharmacy. The rain was no longer a drizzling shower. It felt like tiny needles, stinging my face with each gust of wind. I didn't care. I ran towards my car, my hands trembling so much I couldn't get the key into the ignition. "Just a case of mistaken identity," I whispered. "Just a case of mistaken identity." But my heart didn't believe it. Because the scar, the birthmark, the eyes, everything she said matched. That woman said I was her daughter. And the most dangerous part? A small part of me wanted to believe that. She was right. I sat in the car, unable to remember how I had driven back. I looked into the rearview mirror. A familiar face reflected back. Dark brown hair, cold gray eyes, and pale skin from the allergy. Nothing strange. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Like I was wearing someone else's coat. The right size but oddly uncomfortable. Rachel. That name clung to my consciousness like a claw. I had never known anyone named Rachel, nor could I recall anyone in my contacts or work with that name. But when the woman uttered that name, I didn't react like someone who was indifferent. I froze, as if a part of me already knew. When I got to the apartment, I kicked off my shoes, tossed my coat on the couch, and rushed into the bathroom. I bowed my head over the sink, letting the water flow over my face as if it could wash away everything that had just happened. But it didn't. I couldn't shake that name from my mind. I couldn't shake the look in her eyes, filled with pain, hope, and certainty. I walked out of the bathroom, drenched, not even bothering to change. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, pulled my hair up, and took a picture of the back of my neck with my phone. Something I had never done before. And that birthmark was still there. A faint circle, about the size of a coin, right in the middle of my neck. Not off-center, not faded. I rushed into the bedroom, pulled out a plastic bin filled with old photos from under the bed. Photo albums from elementary school, high school, college, even graduation pictures. They were all here. I knew I had seen them 1,000 times. But tonight, I looked at them with the eyes of someone searching for a gap. I opened the first one. Isabel. Beautiful childhood. My mother's neat handwriting, Susan, decorated the cover with butterfly stickers. The first page had a photo of me sitting, eating birthday cake on my 5th birthday. I remember this photo. My mom said I was eating while crying because I didn't want the candles to go out. That story became a tale told every birthday. I turned the page. A picture of me in kindergarten, drawing a picture. A photo of me with my parents at the park. My first Christmas with Santa at the mall. I turned the page over. The last page was a photo of me at 6 years old. The next page, 5 years old, 4 years old, then 3. That's it. Nothing before that. No newborn photos. No hospital photos after birth. No pictures of me taking my first steps. No scenes of me in my mother's arms, sucking a pacifier, or bathing in a plastic tub. I opened another album. Same thing. I jumped up, rummaging through drawers, filing boxes, anywhere important documents could be kept. I searched for my birth certificate. I found an adoption paper stating, Isabel Grace Bennett, adopted from a community care center in Ohio in July 1998. No birth certificate, no hospital records, no names of biological parents. My mother once told me I was an abandoned child after a car accident. All the paperwork was lost. Only my name was recorded by the nurse. Back then, I believed. Now, I'm not sure. I sat on the floor, leaning against the filing cabinet, staring intently at the picture of me at 5, smiling. The bright smile of a child who didn't know. She might have once been someone else. I reached for my phone, dialed my mom's number. She picked up after the second ring. Sweetheart? Her voice warm as always. I'm making oatmeal cookies. Do you want me to bring some over for you tomorrow morning? Mom. I swallowed hard. I need to ask you something. Go ahead. She paused slightly. Why don't I have any newborn pictures? There was silence on the other end. I heard a spoon drop onto the kitchen counter, followed by rapid, shallow breaths. You already know, don't you? She asked. Her voice was very quiet. I stayed silent. We didn't tell you the whole truth, she continued. We adopted you through an intermediary, not through an orphanage. A woman said your birth mother was no longer alive. No documents. Just you. We thought we were doing the right thing. And the name Isabel? I asked. Who chose it? I chose it, she said. The woman said your real name was Rachel, but I couldn't call you that. It felt too painful. I'm sorry. I hung up. The room suddenly felt unfamiliar. The photos on the walls, me with my parents, me in my graduation gown, me grinning when I got accepted to the publishing house, all became blurry. Not from tears, but because I didn't know anymore whether those memories were real, if everything started from a lie. I had always believed I was Isabel Grace Bennett. Now I'm not so sure. I once had a different name, Rachel Marie Anderson, and maybe a different life that I don't even remember. I couldn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor, my back against the sofa, with the photo album wide open on my lap, the bright laptop screen casting a cold, lifeless light on my face. I typed into the Facebook search bar, Carol Anderson, Asheville, North Carolina. I didn't know if that was the real name of the woman at the pharmacy, but there was something in her eyes that made me believe dangerously. Believe as if I had belonged to that name before I even learned how to spell my own. The results page displayed dozens of names, but I stopped at one profile with a familiar face as the profile picture. It was her. That gaze, that uneasy tenderness. I clicked on the profile. The cover photo was of a garden full of lavender and hydrangeas. The bio simply read, Retired. Gardener. Always believing. Always believing. Believing in what? I scrolled down. Birthday photos, Thanksgiving, family meals. She also had an older daughter, I guessed, named Emma, with 2 blonde children calling her Grandma. A normal family, beautiful, happy. I started to tremble. I saw an album pinned at the top. Its title was Never Forgotten. I didn't hesitate. I clicked on it. The first photo was a family shot. A man with brown hair embracing his wife from behind, with 2 young girls in front. The little girl wore a pink dress, her bright smile missing 2 front teeth. I held my breath. That girl had my eyes, my nose, my cheekbones. The way her head tilted slightly to the left when she smiled. It was me. Not just a resemblance, but me from 25 years ago. I zoomed in on the photo. The girl stood in the flower garden, one hand holding a small red bicycle, the other raised with a dandelion branch. Sunlight streamed through her lightly curly hair, illuminating her face as she beamed. The caption read, The Last Family Photo. 2 weeks later, Rachel disappeared. I put my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob, but the tears kept flowing, without a clear reason. It was just... I didn't know where to put all those emotions. I kept scrolling. There was another photo. Rachel was coloring in the living room. A small teddy bear lay next to her left elbow. On the paper was a scribbled drawing of a blue house, with the slanted words written in crayon, My Home. I took a screenshot, saving the photo to my phone. I kept scrolling until I reached the last photo, a simulated drawing of her grown-up face, done by a forensic artist. It was me. Not a resemblance in part, but my current face, the slightly pointed chin, the gently curved lips, the eyes with slightly drooping lower lids, all so eerily accurate. Under the photo was a note. Rachel Marie Anderson, born May 15, 1995, left-handed, round birthmark on the back of the neck, missing in 1998, Denver, Colorado. I looked down at my hand holding the mouse. My left hand. My fingers were trembling slightly. I tied my hair up, looked in the mirror behind me again. The birthmark was still there, exactly where the post described. I used to think it was a meaningless feature. Now it felt more like a code of identity than anything else. I opened my phone, scrolling back to a photo of me at 3. The first picture in the album made by my adoptive mom. My hair was cut just above my ears, wearing a white shirt. I remember her saying, "The first day of you at your new home." A new home, but not the first home. I scrolled to the bottom of the Never Forgotten album. There was a close-up photo of Rachel hugging an old stuffed elephant. Her face was sleepy, her eyes half closed, her lips indifferent. The caption read, "Peanut, her best friend, she won't sleep without it." I laughed. I went back to the top of the Facebook page, scrolling back up to Carol's profile picture. I stared at it for a long time. She used to hug me, didn't she? She used to wash my hair, kiss my forehead, tell me fairy tales. I couldn't remember, and that was what terrified me the most. I took a deep breath, opened the Facebook Messenger. My hands trembled as I typed each word. "I'm Isabel, the person you met at the pharmacy. If what you said is true, then I might be Rachel. And if that's the case, I think we need to talk." I pressed send. Immediately, the words "seen" appeared. Then the phone rang. I didn't know if it was by accident or if she had been sitting by the screen already, but her voice came through, trembling and choked. "Hello?" I sat in a small cafe on Lexington Street. When Carol arrived, she stepped in carrying a large fabric bag. I stood up as she got closer. "Hi, Carol," I said, my voice so quiet I wasn't even sure I had really said it. She smiled warmly. "You can call me Carol," she said. "Or, if it's easier, Mrs. Anderson." I nodded. "Carol." We sat down. She placed the fabric bag beside her chair. I noticed her hands were trembling slightly, just like mine. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said. I don't know where to begin." I gave a weak smile. "I think neither of us does." A heavy silence. After a deep breath, Carol opened the fabric bag. From it, she pulled out a brown file folder, some old newspapers, and a faded photo album. "I've brought everything that could help you. See the truth," she said, her eyes not leaving her hands. "You know, sometimes, memories aren't the only thing that can prove who someone is. There are things beyond memory, things that don't change." I remained silent. My heart started to beat faster. She opened the first file. An old faded missing child flyer, the ink yellowing. Name, Rachel Marie Anderson, age at disappearance. 3 height, 108 centimeters, weight, 20 kilograms, dominant hand, left identifying features. Faint scar on the left cheek, round birthmark on the back of the neck, dark brown eyes, brown hair. I swallowed hard. Each word I read felt like a small knife cutting into the things I had once been sure of. Carol turned to a news article. Young girl missing from backyard. Police investigate kidnapping possibility. Next, there was a crime scene photo. A small bicycle, a gate slightly ajar, children's shoes lying alone by a flower bush. "It happened in June of 1998, she said, her voice lowering. "We had just moved into our new house in Denver. The little girl, you, were playing in the backyard. I just went inside to take a phone call for 5 minutes. When I came back, you were gone." I gripped my untouched cup of coffee. "We called the police. The whole neighborhood rushed to search. Someone said they saw a van leave the area at the time, but there were no cameras, no license plates, no reliable witnesses." I looked at her. "And, since then, you never found me?" She nodded. "Not a trace." I lowered my head, dazed. I didn't know how to react to the fact that I had once been a kidnapping victim, with no memory of it at all. Carol handed me the photo album. The first page was a photo of my first birthday, me, or Rachel, wearing a white dress, a paper crown, sucking my thumb, and smiling with squinty eyes. The next page was me at 2, sitting on Carol's lap, her face younger, her hair still black, her eyes full of happiness. Then there were photos of a zoo trip, pictures at the beach, and one of me standing beside my sister, Emma, her arm around my shoulders. Emma works for the Child Welfare Bureau now, Carol said. She pursued this career because she lost her little sister. She's always blamed herself for letting me out into the yard alone that day. I flipped to the last page, a blurry Polaroid picture of me, Rachel, sitting on a bed, hugging a gray stuffed elephant. I stared at it. That was Peanut. Impossible to mistake. The torn ear, the blue stitching. I had the exact same elephant when I was a child, but I don't remember who gave it to me. I just know that from the moment I became aware, it was always on my bed every night. Carol opened the bag and took out a small object wrapped in a towel. She unwrapped it. It was Peanut. I couldn't control myself. A shiver ran through my entire body. Emma found it under your bed a week after you disappeared, Carol said, tears quietly falling. I've kept it for 25 years. I always believed there would be a day I could give it back to my daughter. I reached out, touching the worn fur. It was soft and so familiar. I pressed the toy tightly to my chest. My head was in chaos, but my heart felt like it was melting. I don't remember anything, I whispered. Carol nodded. It's okay. I don't expect you to remember. I just hope you'll allow me to prove it. From her jacket pocket, she took out a DNA test kit. I've already taken my sample. All we need is for you to agree. I looked at the tiny test swab on the table. An inanimate object, yet it could bury or redefine my entire life. I nodded. Okay. Carol handed me the test information form. The results could take up to 2 weeks, but if you pay for expedited processing, it'll be 10 days. I nodded. I'll pay. Both of us sat in silence, staring at each other. Neither of us knew what to say next. Finally, Carol spoke. No matter what the result is, I know you are my daughter. A mother always recognizes her child, even after 25 years. I thought I understood what it felt like to be left hanging. But no, not at all. I had waited for job interview results, stayed up all night before a big presentation, and nervously awaited a lover's answer to the question, "Do you still love me?" But all those times felt small and faint like shadows compared to the feeling of waiting for DNA results to define who I am. 10 days. 240 hours. 14,400 minutes. I counted each one. On the first day, I cleaned the house. Every drawer, every space under the bed, every corner of the refrigerator. I organized books by cover color, washed the curtains for the first time in 3 years, even used a cotton swab to clean the gaps in the keyboard. On the second day, I broke down in tears when I saw my old stuffed elephant in an elementary school photo. Not Peanut, of course. It was a faded gray copy, its ear broken, stitches crooked. On the third day, I went to the old pharmacy. I stood at the door, looking at the counter where it all began. I turned away before anyone could strike up a conversation. I began writing everything down, as if afraid the memories would disappear. I wrote about old dreams. Dreams of a garden with a stone angel statue, where a little girl named Emma held my hand and ran around a fountain. I had never known any Emma in my life. Until now. I wrote about the feeling of never resembling my parents, Susan and Richard Bennett. Not just physically, but the vibrational frequency, the invisible alienation during family meals, when they talked about the past that I never remembered. They always told me, "You were probably too young then," and I accepted it as if it were a habit. Now I wonder, did they never tell me the truth because they didn't have the memories to share? On the fourth day, I dreamt of an iron gate slightly ajar. I was riding a bike, a small red one with white streamers on the handlebars. I heard birds chirping, felt the cool breeze against my cheek. My mom, not Susan, but another voice, was calling me from inside the house. Rachel, come in for lunch. I turned my head back, saw the door open, but I didn't make it inside. A shadow blocked the way. I screamed. I woke up to the sound of my heart pounding and sweat soaking my neck. For the first time, I heard that name in my dream. Rachel. I didn't know if it was a memory, an imagination, or a psychological reaction. I only knew it felt too real to ignore. On the 5th day, I called my adoptive mom. Are you okay? She asked, her voice hesitant. I didn't know how to answer. Did you know? I asked. Know what? She hesitated. Know that I wasn't the abandoned child. A long silence followed, then a sigh. I knew. Not at first, but gradually. When you grew up, when we saw photos of missing children. Once I saw Rachel's photo on the news. I turned off the TV. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was afraid of losing you. That answer, so painfully honest. I couldn't hate it, but I couldn't forgive. Not yet. Days 6 to 8, I didn't leave the house. I reread all the articles about Rachel Anderson online, the interviews with Carol, the photos of volunteers searching, the face of a child beside the words, still missing. I thought I had no more tears to cry. I was wrong. On the 9th day, I checked my email every 15 minutes. It wasn't because I was impatient. It was because I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't plan my life if I didn't know who I was. My boyfriend, Alex, texted, I know you're going through something big, but I feel like I'm on the outside. Do you want to share with me? I left that message unread. I wasn't ready. On the 10th day, I was washing dishes when my phone buzzed. Gmail. Subject, test results. Expedite, DNA results. I stood frozen, my hand still holding the wet towel. I opened the email. I read the line, test results, compatibility rate between sample A, Carol Anderson, and sample B, Isabel Grace Bennett. 99.9%. Biological relationship, mother, daughter. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen blurred. The floor seemed to sway. I collapsed, leaning against the fridge, tears flowing silently. Not because I was sad, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in my life, I had an undeniable truth. I am Rachel Marie Anderson. I was kidnapped. I had been raised under another name. I had lived 28 years without knowing who I was. And now, I have to start over. I chose a Sunday afternoon to go. I knew they would be there. Dad always brewed coffee early, and Mom liked to make cream puffs for family day. I used to think it was a beautiful, unique tradition of our family. Now, every small detail like that rings out like an alarm. The 2-story suburban house, painted in light blue, was just as it had been the last time I visited. Lavender flowers planted along the path, wind chimes hanging by the porch, softly ringing in the spring breeze. But as I stepped up the front steps, the hand reaching to ring the doorbell no longer belonged to the little girl I used to be. I was someone else now. Or rather, I was finally myself, after all these years. The door opened. Mom, Susan Bennett, smiled as she always did. Sweetheart, I just took the puffs out of the oven. She froze when she saw my eyes. No smile in return. No, hello, Mom. Only silence. Come in, she said, her voice lowering, slightly trembling. I stepped inside. The house still smelled of cinnamon and vanilla. It was still the place where I grew up, learned to ride a bike, where I once fell and chipped my front teeth trying to plant banana trees on the carpet. Every corner of the house was filled with memories. My father, Richard, was sitting in the living room with a newspaper on his lap. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. I sat down on the opposite chair. No need for small talk. I took out my phone, opened the email, placing it in front of them. 99.9%. No one spoke for the first few seconds. My mom started crying. My dad closed his eyes, leaning back in the chair, as though he had just been punched in the chest. I already know, I said, my voice low and slow. I am Rachel Marie Anderson, Carol Anderson's daughter. We can explain. My dad spoke first, his voice hoarse. I looked at him, not angry, just in pain, a pain too big to express in screams or tears. Yes, I said. My mom clenched her hands together. I don't know where to begin. Then start from the beginning, I interrupted. From when you got me. The truth came out, shattering, piece by piece. In 1998, they were desperate due to infertility after 3 miscarriages and 2 failed adoptions. A relative in Ohio, someone they no longer kept in touch with, called and said there was a lost girl after a car accident. The woman said the birth mother was an addict, no one would adopt the child, and she'd be put into a foster home if no one took her soon. My dad said, his hands clasped together. They didn't ask for more, didn't check any records, didn't report to the police, didn't search for a birth certificate. They carried me off one summer night, through the back door of an old run-down motel on the edge of the city. And so, Rachel disappeared from Denver. Isabel appeared in Asheville. We didn't know you were kidnapped, my mom said, choking on her words. We didn't think about that. We just thought this was our last chance to have a child. And when did you start doubting? I asked. When you started growing up, when we saw some missing child photos in the news, saw your photo on TV. And what did you do? We turned off the TV, ignored it, moved on. I stood up. And every day, your birth mother has lived in pain, and you have lived in a lie. Not a lie, my mom said, her voice hoarse. It was a choice. It might have been wrong, but it wasn't cold-hearted lying. I turned and walked away. I don't deny that you both love me, but love cannot be built on theft. I left that house taking nothing with me. No cream puffs, no farewell hug, no looking back. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at myself for the first time and whispering a name I had never dared to claim. Rachel. It didn't sound strange. It wasn't old. It belonged to me, in a way Isabel had never truly been me. I don't hate Susan and Richard. I don't know when I'll be able to forgive them. I couldn't sleep that night. The apartment was so quiet I could hear every gust of wind through the slightly open window, every tick-tock of the wall clock. I lay in bed, holding Peanut, the old stuffed elephant Carol had returned to me, and wondered, who am I about to meet? A sister, a blood relative, someone who used to tie my hair every morning, played hide and seek with me in the garden, cried the night I disappeared. I had once belonged to someone like that, and I had been taken away from that person. We arranged to meet at a small restaurant in West Asheville. I arrived 15 minutes early. Carol had reserved the table, but she didn't come with me. She said, "This is your space." She chose a table for me by the window, where the afternoon sunlight lightly touched the old wooden table. My heart was pounding, as if it were about to break, and my hand kept smoothing out the napkin, already perfectly flat. And then I saw her. Emma. I recognized her immediately. Not because I had met her before, but because something in my bones surged up. This is my sister. Long brown hair tied low, a face similar to mine, but more angular. Her walk was a bit hurried, a bit shy, a bit hesitant, just like I was when I walked into the pharmacy 10 days ago. When our eyes met, we both froze. She walked over. I stood up. No one spoke for the first few seconds. Then Emma blurted out, "You still have dimples when you smile." I laughed. "Really?" "Yeah, you used to hate it. You said it made you look childish." "I guess you haven't changed," I said, and we both laughed, softly but sincerely. We sat down. Neither of us knew where to begin. "Do you remember me?" Emma asked. I shook my head. Not clearly, but I dreamt about you. Her eyes lit up. "What?" "Once I dreamt about us playing in the garden. There was a stone angel statue and a little fountain. You called me Rach, not Rachel, just Rach." Emma put her hand to her mouth. "Oh my God. Is that real?" She nodded. "I called you Rach since you were in diapers." My nose suddenly tingled. "How long did you search for me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Never stopped," she replied without hesitation. "No matter how normal everything seemed on the outside, I always searched. I went into social work because of you. I helped reunite hundreds of families, but I always felt something was missing." "Missing you?" Emma sighed. "When Dad died, Mom almost completely collapsed. I turned to stone. We both believed that without hope, we would die with him, but we were still alive and still waiting." After a moment of silence, Emma took something wrapped in a handkerchief out of her bag. I unwrapped it. It was a children's bracelet made of colorful plastic beads with the letters R.A. spelled out. "I made this for you when you were 6, she said. "We had a pair. You wore one, I wore one. After you disappeared, I never took it off." I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down, not from pain, but from the sudden completeness of something lost so long ago that I thought I could never find it again. Emma stood up. "Can I hug you?" I nodded, and for the first time in 25 years, the two of us hugged. That afternoon, we sat in the restaurant until the sun set. Emma told me about the backyard with the swing I always fought to sit on first. About the dog named Bailey, which I used to hide in the attic from because I was scared it would lick my face. About how I once tried to learn to write my name with my left hand. "The whole family is waiting for you," Emma said, her voice soft as the breeze. "I don't know what to say to them," I replied, honestly. "You don't need to say anything. Just come." I went to Carol's house on a Saturday afternoon, just 5 days after meeting Emma. The white painted wooden house with the wide porch had appeared in my dreams. I thought it was just a random scene my mind had created. Now I knew. It was an old memory, forgotten, but never lost. The moment I stepped up the porch, I saw the gaze, dozens of eyes, watching me from inside the window. I took a deep breath. My hand trembled as it touched the doorknob. Carol opened the door before I could knock. "Hello, dear," she said. No tears, just a small smile. In the living room were more than 10 people, uncles, aunts, cousins. A gray-haired man stepped forward, his eyes watery. "I'm Uncle Frank, your mother's brother," he said. "I promised Carol that if I ever had the chance, I would be the first to hug you." Before I could react, he wrapped his arms around me, not too tight, not too long, but warm enough to take my breath away. I didn't feel suffocated. I felt like I belonged. Then someone else stepped forward. Then another. A young woman said, "I'm Lucy, your cousin. When you disappeared, I was just born. But your photo hung in my room throughout my childhood." A little girl, with curly hair and oversized glasses, shyly took my hand. "Are you really Rachel?" I nodded gently. The meal took place in the backyard, under the shade of a bright red maple tree. There was roasted chicken, mixed salad, lemonade, and apple pie that someone said was Rachel's favorite when she was little. I didn't remember. But when I took the first bite, I unexpectedly shivered. Familiar. So familiar. The gentle, spicy cinnamon flavor, the soft crust with just a little crispness at the edges. I must have eaten this so many times. Carol sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on my back. "You don't need to try to remember," she whispered. "Let everything come slowly. I'm here." I turned to look at her. "Mom." That word slipped out like a heavy weight being lifted from my heart. No force, no struggle. After the meal, Carol led me upstairs, to my old room. It was still preserved, as if I had just left yesterday. Pale pink walls, animal print pillows, a small bookshelf, and an old doll set. On the table was a wooden box, its lock old and dusty. Carol opened it. Inside were a pair of small yellow knitted socks with lace trim, a sparkly headband. A messy drawing, Mom plus Rach plus Emma plus Dad equals family, and a twisted blue plastic ring, definitely once my treasure. You hid this in my secret box when you were little, Emma said, standing behind me. You said you would give it back to me when you grew up. I picked up the ring, gently touching it. Another shiver ran down my spine. No memory, but it had a soul. That night, I didn't go back to my apartment. I slept in that room. Carol hugged me before turning off the lights. She kissed my forehead, like a mother instinctively remembering how to kiss her child, even after 2 decades. Good night, Rachel, she whispered. I looked up at the light cream-colored ceiling, feeling my chest lighten. No more pain, no more feeling lost. Only one thing existed in me. I was going home. There's one thing no one told me. Finding your identity doesn't end when you're welcomed back home. It's just the beginning. After the reunion, everyone thought I'd be fine. That after the tears, the hugs, the apple pies, and the old room, I would slip back into the life that had belonged to me 25 years ago, as if no one had ever stolen it. But the reality was not that simple. I had been Isabel Grace Bennett for 28 years. I had loved, learned, failed, succeeded, laughed, screamed, written, signed, filed taxes, opened bank accounts, had boyfriends, and gotten promotions, all with that name. So now, if I fully return to being Rachel, am I killing Isabel? And if I keep Isabel, am I betraying Rachel, the girl who was once lost, forgotten, and held captive in a life that wasn't hers? I don't know. My lawyer advised me on changing my birth name. Because you are the victim of a kidnapping and your true identity has been confirmed through DNA testing, restoring the name Rachel Marie Anderson is entirely possible, but you also have the option to keep your current name as a legal second name. I nodded, my head spinning. One evening, I sat with Carol in the living room, the soft yellow light, a warm cup of tea in my hand. I feel torn, I said. Like Isabel and Rachel are two people, and both of them are pulling me in different directions. Carol didn't reply immediately. She poured more tea, then looked at me with the gaze I had feared as a child, the gaze of a real mother. You don't have to choose one, she said. You don't have to split yourself in two. You are Rachel. That's an unchangeable truth. But Isabel is also you. She's the journey you lived, the way you existed and grew in a world you didn't choose. So can I be both? Not just can. You are both. I decided to register a new legal name, Rachel Isabel Anderson Bennett. A long, almost laughable name, but each letter in it carried a story. Rachel, the girl who was stolen from her family, who disappeared from this world as if she had never existed. Isabel, the woman who learned to love herself in the midst of loneliness. Anderson, blood, roots, truth. Bennett, love, even if wrong, but true love. I posted a public entry on my personal blog, where I used to write books, write about single life. Today I wrote, I have lived 28 years with a name that isn't mine. I loved the one who called me Isabel, but now I am learning to embrace Rachel, the child the world once forgot, but never disappeared. I am the victim, but I am also the survivor, and I choose not to erase any version of myself. I am Rachel Isabel Anderson Bennett, a long name, but no one else can carry it but me. The post spread faster than I expected. Hundreds of comments. Many people shared their stories of being adopted, being renamed. A woman messaged, I was also kidnapped, but I never dared to find my real name. Thank you for giving me the courage. I read it with trembling hands. I never imagined that my survival could open a door for someone else to find themselves. Alex, my ex-boyfriend, called back after almost 2 weeks of silence. Are you okay? He asked, his voice sincere. I stayed silent for a moment. Number, but I'm learning how to be okay. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Number, I'm the most full of holes person you've ever known, I replied. But I'm starting to see that those holes can also be a place for light to enter. We didn't get back together, but he still listened to me like a friend, and I appreciated that. That weekend, I stood in front of the old mirror in the childhood room at Carol's house and looked at myself for a long time. I didn't see little Rachel, nor did I see the strong Isabel. I saw a person learning to embrace both without needing to choose. I whispered softly, "Hello, Rachel. Hello, Isabel. Thank you for not giving up on each other." Then I smiled. Because I'm not just the one who was found. I am the one who found myself.